Hey, good evening. I'm Jeff, and at the age of 21, I became the pastor of Ada Bible Church, east of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Now, I do not remember applying for the job. I did not interview. I don't remember auditioning. The official word, I guess, is a candidate. Our plan was not to stay in Grand Rapids. My wife, Chris, and I, we met our senior year of high school, Sacramento, California. We met there, started dating, came out to Grand Rapids to go to Bible school, Bible college. And before my senior year of Bible college, we were married. And our plan was to come back for 1 year, finish up, and then head back out to the western states and do ministry of some sort. That was the plan before the phone call. Guy by the name of Marty called, and he says, "Hey, I attend Ada Bible Church. Our pastor has resigned. Would you be willing to fill in for one Sunday?" I said, absolutely. I'd done this before. Preached, that is, twice. At my father's church on Wednesday night. I was a wild success among the elderly people who attended my father's church on Wednesday night. But I said, sure, and I drove out to Ada Bible Church. It was on a dirt road. It was a house structure. It's like 50, 60 folding chairs were set up. And again, it was on a dirt road. It's not only that Ada Bible Church was irrelevant to Grand Rapids. People in the village of Ada had never heard of Ada Bible Church. Immediately, I thought that they should kind of change the logo to Ada Bible Church, the church you've been looking for. Because you could look and not find Ada Bible Church. So, finished preaching that weekend, and that was that. And then 2-3 weeks later, phone rings again, and it's Marty, and he says, "Can you preach 2 Sundays?" And I said, "Sure." The money was good. It's $25 a sermon. Some of them were worth it. And then Marty called again a while later and said, "Would you be willing to fill in until we find a real pastor?" So, that was 32 years ago. They are still looking. And we stayed. We made Grand Rapids our home. And lo and behold, we were kids, but the church started to grow as the college students and young couples made this ministry their home. I remember the little podium that was up there at the front. Sanctuary was 24 feet wide. I know that because it was the size of a 2-stall garage. When we ended up finally selling it and someone turned it into a house, the sanctuary is where the garage was in the future. But next to the podium in front, to the left-hand side, there was this old school attendance board, the kind with the grooves in it where they would slide in numbers every week for like the attendance the week before and the offering the week before. And up at the top, it was the record attendance. Now, our first weekend there is like 20, 25 people, including kids. Just a financial tip for you. If you're looking for a fast track to financial security, do not become the pastor of a church of 25 people. Just saying. But there at the top of the attendance board was like the record attendance. It was like 67 people, and it started to climb. It started to move. Remember when we had 72 people, and then 79, and 85, and 89, and 92, and 100 for the first weekend ever, a couple of years in, and then 105 and 117 people. Now, I know that now in the advent of the megachurch, a church of 117 people is not exactly astounding. But at the time, the growth was intoxicating. I mean, going from 25 to 50, my friends, that's a 100% growth rate. From 50 to 100, that was 100% again. And so things were growing. They were moving in the right direction. The church owned 12 acres. We wanted to sell this house on the dirt road, get out of that place and get into a respectable building and a respectable location. And so we announced next April we were going to be building. And that added even more momentum. I live kind of out in the country, and sometimes I walk outside and can smell the wood smoke coming from some neighbor's wood-burning stove. Success has an aroma. And when things are going well and momentum is growing, it's like you can smell it in the air. So we announced the next April we were going to be building. I've discovered something, that competence in one area does not necessarily mean competence in another area. And it's that if you garner the proficiency of learning how to pray with people before a surgery or officiate a really painful funeral, that doesn't necessarily give you the ability to build anything. I wasn't qualified to build a doghouse, and was leading the charge in this building campaign to relocate. So I'd never had any skill or ability at raising the tens of thousands of dollars necessary to build the building. And time kind of got away from us, and so we were arriving at that April, and it became clear to all of us in leadership that we didn't have our plan together, we didn't have the money we needed, we were pretty much broke. And so I remember the day that I stepped up to the podium and as April approached and said, hey, listen, we said that we were going to build this year, but our plan isn't together, our funding isn't in place. We would rather wait a year than to race into a building project that we really aren't prepared for. That weekend after I was done, people thanked me. Thank you for not leading us into a building program that we're not ready for. And so we prepared for the next April, but during that year, a factory approached us, and they said, the 12 acres you own, we would love to put a factory there. Would you be willing to sell to us? And they made this offer to us that felt at the time just extraordinarily high, and with that money, we could buy new property and then have like the down payment for this building. But the wheels turned so slowly on their end and on our end, put together a search committee, looked for a new property, and the clock was ticking. And so the next year, I had the wonderful leadership opportunity of walking up to the podium and saying, we said it was going to be this year. But, we've had this property opportunity and it's not in place. It'll be next year that we'll build. Strange thing, I rake my memory. For the life of me, I cannot remember anybody thanking me after that announcement. And we did find other property. And we designed a new building plan for the new property, and our funding wasn't together. And the next year, 3 years in a row, had the wonderful leadership opportunity of saying, I know I said it would be this year, but it'll be next April. Honest. And during those 3 years of delays, we grew from 100 down to about 50. Now, these were not numbers. These were people, these were families, these were people that we had worshiped with, that we had laughed with, and in some cases cried with. And it didn't dwindle all at once, but the attendance board next to the podium had still, the record attendance was still the same, 117, but last week's attendance dropped into the 90s and the 80s and the 70s and the 60s. It came to rest in the 50s. Three years of spinning our wheels trying to get the traction to get out of that stinking house on that stinking dirt road. And the way a family leaves is often it'd be the husband that would call and he would say, hey, I'm wondering if we can go out to coffee. And I go, no coffee. And sit down across some coffee. He'd say, we need to look for another church. It's not you. I always felt like I was being broken up with. It's not you. We just need to date other churches. And of course, when a family decides, we just want to look for something else, you don't run an announcement in the bulletin that says, the Wilsons have abandoned us. Someone would just come up and they'd go, hey, I haven't seen Bob and Donna around here for a while. So they decided to look for a different church. And for each couple or individual that would leave, and by the way, the evidence was on their side that we really weren't going anywhere, you'd have that conversation 2, 3, 4 times. I felt like I was dying a slow death. I remember the shame. Coroner's report would read, death by humiliation. And then the weight would grow heavier on those of us that were still there. I mean, just It's the basic things, mowing the lawn, cleaning the church building, guarding the nursery so no kids escaped. And the financial burden came to rest on fewer and fewer shoulders. 7 years into our journey, we sold the house on a dirt road and moved into a rented high school auditorium. I was no longer 21. I was no longer a newlywed. I was approaching 28, had 2 small children. Soon the third would be on the way. And our net gain in almost 7 years of pouring our life into this place was going from a church at 25 to going to a church of about 50 people. Now, individuals enter ministry for a number of reasons and out of diverse motivations. And yet, I entered ministry in order to be a colossal disappointment to myself and everyone around me. Is rarely mentioned among them. My dad was a preacher. I was raised in a pastor's home. I was not totally naive. See, I knew that there would be days of disappointment. I just didn't realize that there would be years of disappointment. I didn't realize that there would be years of being a disappointment. Some days I walk to the mailbox out on our road and I can smell the distant scent of wood smoke coming from someone's wood-burning fireplace. Success has an aroma, and failure has an aroma. When things are falling apart, you can smell it in the air.